these artists really nourished my soul, not only my art. I almost cried when they said they're doing a library at Misk. Knowing the reasons why Muslims chose this kind of art and how connected it is to so many different sciences was an eye-opener. Geometry is a universal language, and I'm such in love. I'm just lost in it.
True or false? The art of printmaking does not get enough credit.
The reason why it's undervalued stems from the West. We value the paintings. We feel like a great artist sits and paints. Even today in the market, prints have a lesser price than painting. And there is no real reason for that.
Rafa Nasiri is one of my inspirations, great inspiration.
He was one of the pioneers of not just only Iraqi art, but particularly in printmaking and using the text in his work.
Welcome to another episode of the Misk Art Library podcast. My name is Mikey Mhenna. Today on the series, we have two experts of art from the region. Lulwah Al Homoud, one of the artists who's featured in the Art Library podcast, the Art Library series, and Dr. Nada Shabout, who's going to be talking about Rafa Nasiri. Welcome to you both. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Lulwah, I want to start with you because I want to start with what it means to you to be included in this series and why you think the pairing between you and Rafa was so meaningful.
It is definitely so meaningful. It is very important. And I almost cried when they said they're doing a library at Misk because I personally suffered when I was doing my research at Central St. Martin's. I could not find enough books, to be honest, especially on the development of the Arabic script and especially also on the use of contemporary art. I mean, there has been some exhibitions, but the text was not enough to do a thorough research. So I had to go and interview some artists and scholars. I traveled to Egypt, to Syria, to Lebanon to meet some artists, and today, I mean, it was like a very emotional moment for me because, of course, Rafa Nasiri is one of my inspirations, great inspiration. Him being exposed to different cultures, him being, following the graphic style, him being also a pioneer in what he did. So for me, I am really humbled to have my name paired with such a huge and I have a really great admiration in general to the Iraqi modern artist and especially to Rafa Nasiri. So it means a lot to me.
Nada, do you remember when you first became aware of Rafa's work?
Well, I do. I had actually, growing up in Baghdad, I had seen some of his work, but of course, didn't really put it in context until in the 1990s, last century, I was doing my research. And in fact, Rafa was a great friend. So it was in 93 or 94 that I contacted him as I'm doing research. As Lulwah said, while I was a student doing research, I had to go and interview artists. I think they were good, simpler times. It was easier to contact artists than it is today. But Rafa was so generous, opened up his library, interviewed and extensively, and we became excellent friends.
Well, I should mention Rafa, the reason why he's not here, Allah yarhamu, is because he passed away a few years ago. And so, Nada, you've graciously been willing to represent his work in this episode since you contributed to the book. Lulwah, I want to go back a little bit to some of your sort of early days in your childhood, and what sort of like thrust you into loving art and thinking about it as a possible life path, career path?
It wasn't my intention,
Yeah.
to be honest. I was never trying to pursue, to being an artist, but that happened. But I was always interested in art.
Yeah.
I mean, when I studied in London, actually, I studied visual communication design. And my MA was also in visual communication design. But as you know, in London they make you do a lot of painting classes, drawing classes, typography. So I felt like this is a really nice and diverse environment for me, and I was really happy to. When I went to London, maybe that is the reason why I wanted to know more about, our culture, our Islamic art, our, the calligraphy. All of these things were not so big in Saudi. We never studied anything about Islamic art. We never studied anything about, the meaning of the Islamic geometry as an abstract art. They were looked at, as decorative, nothing more. So, knowing the reasons why Muslims chose this kind of art and how connected it is to so many different sciences was an eye opener, really, to me. And I began loving this path, but I was not thinking of being, an artist. I was still curating at that time. Since I was a student, I was trying to shed light on the Arab Islamic art in London. And I learned a lot, not only from my MA, I learned a lot as a curator about Rashid Qureshi, about Hassan al-Masoudi. I went to, their studios and visited them, and talking to these artists really nourished my soul, not only my art, really.
Yeah. Nida, I see you nodding along as Lulwah's speaking. What about what she's saying is resonating?
Well, I mean, so many on so many levels. I mean, similar almost, journey of not growing up with art that I saw, but then studying in America and not really knowing much about the roots of our own heritage. Kind of is what pushed me into the studying all of the investigation, the looking into the art and the artist that Lulwah was mentioning. I mean, part of my PhD dissertation was on Hurufiyya, which is a term that I don't really necessarily like anymore. I prefer to say textual abstraction because it opens up to more serious
I agree with
possibilities.
you. I agree with
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
And so I too looked into and studied all those, the artists that Lulwah mentioned, including Rafa, because he was one of the pioneers of not just only Iraqi art, but particularly in printmaking and using the text in his work. So, we seem to all sort of start the same path and luckily in the same place.
Yeah. It's funny, this idea of like broader themes. Lulwah, so much of your work deals and sort of interrogates and circles around spirituality and circles around Islam. Do you connect with Rafa's work in that way too? Although it's maybe not so directly on the head, do you feel that sort of same, as if both are sort of exploring the same things more broadly?
I think Rafa has a kind of a mystical approach also to his paintings, and also I love that he used printing, because sometimes the only way to have these sharp images or absorbed into the paper is the silkscreen printing and other kind of printing. So I can relate. I mean, when I read about him, I really loved how he was open to people, how he was, creating this society around him of students, and he was not he was very generous. Giving knowledge, and that doesn't happen with so many artists, to be honest. Giving or transferring his knowledge to other artists and students. But I feel that he is a school. I mean, he created a school, and a lot of people followed his path. I believe in Iraq and outside of Iraq.
Yeah, I mean, the time that I met you in Riyadh, I feel like last year, you sort of exude this that sort of generosity, that spirit of generosity and humility, and sort of like inviting people into the fray. So it's definitely something that I feel like you're clearly doing as well.
If you take this kind of art, it teaches you how to be humble, because it's not about you. You kind of dissolve your inner ego into what you're doing. So I can relate to him, and I think he's a pioneer in doing that. So that's why he's not possessive of what he has. He is actually very generous, giving all the time, and I think he did that until the end of his life.
Absolutely.
Lulwah, can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
Since this book sort of tries to tell your life and give life up until now, obviously, do you see a huge evolution in your work? Like when somebody sort of lays out this retrospective, and you have all these sort of writers and curators and folks interrogating your work and sort of laying it out for you, do you see your work and think, wow, this has changed so much. My approach has really evolved in ways where like that jacket doesn't fit me anymore. Those shoes don't fit me anymore.
100%. I mean, if you look at my paintings like 25 years ago or 30 years ago, no, you wouldn't recognize it was me. I guess I was just experimenting with color, and like all artists at their beginnings. But honestly, having conversation with some artists like Ahmed Mustafa, for example, and Samir Saigh in Lebanon, they really opened my heart to the spirituality in art more than anything else. And I felt, the less comprehensive elements in the art is what expresses spirituality. And I mean, geometry is a universal language, and I'm such in love. I'm just lost in it.
Yeah. Now it's so funny, you and just listening to watching you and listening to Lulwah at the same time. You're so
because
so
I hear her.
Yeah.
I understand what she's saying, and I totally agree that Lulwah's work has evolved a lot. And the experiments that you sort of went through, you arrived at a place where one feels that spirituality immediately in your geometry and the moving geometry that you did. I mean, I'm a fan of your work, so you know that.
Oh, that means a lot to me, Dr. Nada. I mean, thank you so much. I'm so honored. Coming from you means a lot to me.
Do you like that feeling, Lulwah? Do you like the idea of looking at your older work and saying, that's me, but it's not me right now? Does that feel, is that a beautiful feeling? Is that a sort of funny, sort of a strange feeling?
I think art is one of the tools that help us grow, really, intellectually, spiritually, acquiring knowledge through art. I was struggling, to be honest, as a student in math and physics, and through art, so many things made sense to me. Math made sense to me. I depended on mathematics in my art to create this, new codes and all that. But if as a student, I wasn't good at math. I even failed math.
Yeah.
So art helped me actually to make sense of so many things, of so many realities around me, and made me understand and connect to things that I haven't connected to before.
Neda, I want to go back to something that you were saying earlier about the Hurufiyya terminology. Who would disagree with you that that's not a good name? Who would say, no, this is a good name. This is a good name.
I mean, Sharm el-Dagher, in his book حروفية والهوية العربية in the 1990s, I believe, yes, is sort of the one who popularized that term. And it was already contested by many, including by Wujdan Ali, Wujdan al-Hashimi, currently, who preferred calligraphic abstraction. The issue was that Charbel was sort of basing his definition on the evolution of al-Hawiyya al-Arabiyya, the Arab identity, rightly so. And Amira Wujdan was more thinking about it from a continuity in calligraphy, Islamic calligraphy, which most of us modernists disagree with because it's a completely different iteration, particularly during the 20th century. Nowadays, in the contemporary, you can find some more of invoked continuity, but then it was specific to have a rupture. Even for Rafa, who was part of the New Vision group that was created in 1969, who specifically wanted to, in a revolutionary way, sort of challenge the status quo of everything of the past, including the recent modern past, that their own professors, their own teachers. And so they looked at the letter from a very different point of view and put it in a different context, a secular, non-spiritual context that then in time evolved, even in the work of Rafa, to more spiritual aspects. It depending on the experiment. So for them, it was very necessary to differentiate between a calligrapher and a painter. And so, for that reason, and as we now have more sort of resources and looking at more examples, and because to be honest, Mikey, Hurufiyya became abused at the end. It was just sort of, any work of art that you slap a letter on becomes Hurufiyya, which kind of took away a lot from experiments from that the generations were doing before, or experiments like the ones that Lulwah is doing now. So, the textual abstraction has a broader sort of, containing different experiments, a broader approach to the use of the letter. But in reality, that's what it is. It's how the letter now is part of the work of art in different ways.
I agree with Dr. Nada 100%. I mean, even Dr. Wujdan, Amira Wujdan, her book, her PhD was one of my references. And she actually helped me and sent it to me when I tried to ask her. She sent it to me from Jordan to London. And she was questioning what is Islamic art. I mean, even the term beyond about what Dr. Nada is saying, is it Hurufiyya? Why is that term said on this kind of art? But again, it's a bigger umbrella. Islamic art became a bigger umbrella that sometimes non-Islamic ideas are considered Islamic just because they're coming from Islamic countries. So I agree with her 100%.
Neda, can I ask you for a favor?
Sure.
Can you just describe the manifesto of the New Vision collective that sort of formed? Who were the members in the sort of late 50s, and why did this collective need to exist, and why did they think they were what did they think they were doing?
Yeah, well, the generation of Rafa Nasiri, who we think of as the 60s generation, inherited everything that the Baghdad Modern Art Group brought with them in terms of Istilham al-Turath and in terms of using heritage, but it was about forming an Iraqi identity. the new vision, which sort of responded to the 1967 Naksa, wanted to broaden the concept of heritage to pan-Arab. They had different dynamics. There were different reasons for their engagement, and they were extremely almost angry at the status quo and wanted to really change that. They wanted to be defiant. They wanted to be aggressive. They did not want the sort of, approach that the Baghdad Modern Art Group had, which was resistance was in creating good art. They wanted to create good art, but they wanted to actually also have the resistance strongly apparent. And it was a group of Rafa Nasiri, Ziya Al-Azzawi, Ismail Fattah al-Turk, Hashim Samarji, Muhammad Mohreddin. They were the main artists who signed that manifesto. And in fact, it was specifically in reaction to a meeting that was supposed to happen in Cairo, a pan-Arab meeting. And they wanted to sort of express that in solidarity. So their approach to art, moved from that sort of, more culturally based to a wider Arab region-based approach. And in the work of Rafa Nasiri, of course, it went into very different directions.
Yeah. Are there specific aesthetics or sort of approaches or media that sort of tied these artists together? And can I sort of draw a dotted line to Lulwah's work and this generation of artists from that?
So, I mean, the approach was, deeper experiments that it was informed and was drawing on wider understanding of the context. And I think so that their work was very different, but they all kind of were drawing from the same resources that Lulwah is drawing from as well in a very different way. So, I mean, that connects them, the fact that they wanted to be rooted and grounded in the heritage and culture, but their understanding of heritage and culture shifted and changed from the 50s through the 60s through to the generations that got to Lulwah. You can draw a dotted line, but with the understanding that there's an evolution that took place.
Yeah. Lulwah, can I ask you a similar question? When you think about some of the that experimentation, and as I was asking you about sort of the evolution of your career and sort of the experiments, what do you think the sort of core experiments? What do you think is at the core of those experimentations? Are there sort of philosophical things that you're trying to unpack or find answers to internally or externally?
I mean, are you referring to inspirations and?
Yeah.
Because if you're referring to inspiration, I really got inspired by text and specifically philosophies. From these philosophies was Ikhwan al-Safa letters, for example. They were very inspiring to me. And I think they have inspired other artists that used, the words and the calligraphers. And honestly, it connects ideas together. And I believe that I was trying to find what is the art of the soul rather than, my senses or my, and I found that, that the use of calligraphy, for example, and geometry is the closest to the soul. And I mean, you can refer that also to other artists in the West. Not only Muslims, but maybe Catholic, but they were spiritual. So I think I was lost, to be honest. I didn't want to draw. I wanted something that is crisp, that is universal, something that doesn't reflect my feelings, but really reflect my faith, maybe more than anything else.
Yeah. So I have a question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen. And then I'd love to sort of look through the book. I don't have the physical books with me, but I'd love to look through the book. And then, Lulwah, I'll start with you and ask you if there's any of the pieces in the book that sort of elicit a story or make you think of a specific moment?
So I work in series. I mean, the Language of Existence series is my work, my life project. I keep going back to it. But sometimes I do one word for a year or two, just the word hua, for example, and I experiment with the word hua because it's it can be done, and the composition of Hoa can be in so many different ways. Just for two letters, it can be so different. I mean, one of the works that I really felt had this transparency is the known that is in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
نون
this one.
نون والقلم وما يسطرون, and the text is going around it, and
Yeah. I wonder if there's, if you know, and I always think about like what a 12-year-old would say. I don't know. I don't know why I think this way, but I do. Like I always think what a 12-year-old would say. And I know when I look at some of your pieces, I think a lot of them, a 12-year-old might say, this looks so simple. And so my question to you is, are there any of them that you think this one was so hard for me to break? Like it
Yeah.
really like haunted me. Are there any of that sort of completely haunted you? You just couldn't.
To be honest, this known was not easy. Sometimes when I work, I exhaust my brain, really, and my eyes, and I have to leave it for a while and come back. And sometimes it can turn to an obsession because I want to get that depth. And I mean, I love the relation between the three-dimensional and the two-dimensional. When you look at the two-dimensional, you can see the three-dimensional. I love that, and I love the visual ambiguity. So I cannot be satisfied or content until I feel like this must be difficult for someone to look at it. They have to keep looking at it until they decipher it. So I kind of treat the viewer as a very intelligent person.
It actually pulls you in if you focus. You keep looking at it. So it feels like it sort of goes into your soul.
Yeah,
Thank you.
The third dimension slowly reveals itself. It slowly reveals itself. It's amazing. I'm going to scroll down to some of the other ones just to see if any of them strike any memory. So
this one on the right is I mean, it's not readable, but because it's small, maybe it can be readable. It's the word Allah intertwined. So you can read it from different direction. The silver says Allah and the black says Allah. Yeah. I can imagine something like this takes a while for you to be like, is this, does this work? It's also complicated when you do the fine art printing, also the silk screen printing, because you have to work as an engineer, what to print first and what to print last. And so it's kind of tricky. But of course, I do it out of love. Okay, Nada, I'm going to bring over some of yours. Come in.
What you can see in Rafa's work, specifically as we get to this period, he found, because of his training in China, so he understood spirituality in a very different way. And in fact, his time in China and experiments with woodblock and Chinese landscape sort of stayed with him throughout his career. And even, there are the different aesthetic experiments that he had in the 70s and the 80s. His way of navigating the horizon, which invokes that spirituality as an almost sort of a combination of, religious and sensuality through that horizon line, but later through poetry. So the relationship between his abstraction and his formulation, as sort of informed by the poets, whether they are, old Islamic poets or his wife's poetry, May Mudaffar, invokes that spirituality in different levels than what Lulwah does, for example. And the series that he did of Al-Mutanabbi or Maqamat al-Hariri, which kind of took him back to his sort of, old studies in Baghdad, where Maqamat al-Hariri was such an essential thing. And in the way he actually I used to love to sit and watch Rafa work, because he's in a different world on his own. We are completely shut out. We're out. We're there, but he doesn't even see us. He's very just sort of involved in his work. But then, he comes out and he immediately brings you in his work as well. He was generous in that way as well, not just as training. And even in Amman, when he was in self-exile, in Amman, he opened a studio for students. And actually, I'm going to tell you a small anecdote that just, a quick one. We were in Florence. And he said, I have some students here in Florence. And I'm like, how are you going to find them? He said, you know what? Don't worry about it. We went and walked around the Duomo, and they found him. These artists who were sitting and painting and drawing, they came, Ustad Rafa. And it was amazing. It was amazing. He was surrounded immediately by his students. And he actually resonates that spirituality in his personality as well.
Amazing. Okay, I'm going to keep on going. Kaman, Lulwah, if you see any that you think mean something to you as well.
And you can see actually some of his later work kind of engaged more with the politics of the time, the destruction that he was seeing happening in his country. You see that even in these two works that you're seeing now. His engaging of the letter and the colors are really what sort of it brings up the emotions that he's feeling. The 70s works, for example, were much calmer. There was a lot more use of turquoise and blue colors. You can see, and of course he experimented with dafatar as well, the books.
I love the artist books. Yeah, they're
Yes.
amazing, and I also love that relation between poetry and and the color and the compositions. It's just amazing.
Amazing. I want to go to some of his earlier work. I mean, to see some of the evolution.
Actually, you can see the form changing. So the period of the 60s and how he was formulating the abstract sort of references to letters. The letters started appearing stronger in the later work. And the dots that always existed in his work, there are like 3 dots you can see sort of evolving through his work, and that, the horizon later. But as you can see, it's not legible. It's not meant to be read. Even when he did poetry later, and sometimes he would actually inscribe the whole poem because it affected him more, strongly. More of that happened towards later in his career.
Did his connection to Iraq change over time?
I mean, of course it did, because, when you're inside, it's different then. However, there was always that constant line of his longing to Iraq and surrounded by the Iraqis, Iraqi artists and Iraqi students. So it was, it was more of I want to build when he first returned and when he started the department of printmaking and, the studio. There was this sort of hope and giving. And then when he was in exile, it was more about longing and how to protect and persevere with, the memory of Iraq. So, of course, yeah.
Okay, so
I'm following his steps and teaching printmaking here.
Excellent. That's great.
So, true or false? Lulwah, we'll start with you.
Okay.
The art of printmaking does not get enough credit.
True.
Why is that?
I think it's underestimated, especially in the Arab world. A few artists understood the value of printmaking. I mean, if we look even at Safia bin Zaghir, the first woman artist in Saudi, she understood the value of printmaking and did some etching in the 70s in London. But printmaking is not an easy process.
Can I ask you to just describe it? Because I can imagine somebody listening to this just saying that كبس print خلاص.
No.
So
No,
tell us a little bit about what it is.
You get out of your comfort, and actually it's a physical process because you wash and you expose and you print. So you do it, and it has that beautiful element of surprise at the end. Once you lift, the machine, you see the work, and it has that surprise element. So it shows a lot of devotion towards your art. That's what I think. It shows a lot of devotion.
And there are different techniques in printmaking, whether you're doing wood blocks or you're doing, zinc plates there's the chemicals involved. It's a messy process. It's not, a simple one. But I think I want to add that although for example, in Iraq, printmaking was very much valued. And in fact, you see printmaking even in some of the universities in the Arab world start more of graphic kind of design and printmaking as opposed to printmaking as an art, because it's sort of has a technical aspect to it. But I think actually the reason why it's undervalued stems from the West. We value the paintings. We feel like a great artist sits and paints. And of course, all of the artists and the Western European artists experimented with printmaking as well. But, even today in the market, prints have a lesser price than painting. And there is no really real reason for that, because they are as demanding, as tiring a work to do as paintings are. So why? But, I don't know. I don't even understand the market anyway. So,
Yeah. Okay, thanks I wanted to clear this up because I was having a conversation about this with a friend 2 days ago. So this will...
I mean, digital printing sort of, messed up everything in our minds, right? You press a button and
Yeah, of course. And imagine when you do more than one color, a silk screen, for example. And to do the registration, if the work is continuous, so each color is a screen, and it takes days to do that. I mean, I would like to ask your friend to come and visit my studio and have a workshop with me.
I love it. Okay, I want to look at some of the early, I love the section of the book that shows the sort of like the biography. So in particular, I'm going to ask Lulwah for you to sort of look at some of these earlier photos and see if any of them jog a memory or are your favorite photos.
Of course. I mean, I think being a child was, is the ultimate memory, because, I had my mother, I had my father, I had my grandmother living with us. I mean,
where in Saudi were you raised?
In Riyadh. In Riyadh. Yeah.
A very different Riyadh than the sort of 2025 version.
Oh, of course. I mean, it was open when I was a little child. It was very open, and things changed to in the 80s, and from 79 onwards. And I think now we're catching up with that development. But definitely, being in London, I really cherish the time and the education that I took. It wasn't something that only that I learned. Of course, I learned a lot from university, but I also went back and questioned a lot. I reconstructed my understanding of, for example, the Arabic script and the geometry, and that was really an eye opener for me. I think my MA really changed me from within, and this is what is the most important thing when you learn something. is to make it change you inside.
This is a personal question, so feel free to tell me, Mikey, I'm not going to answer this. But do you feel like your art practice reflects your spirituality, or is the method with which you sort of access your spirituality?
I think it does reflect my spirituality. And it does invite others also to, to have that calm feeling. It's. I mean, when you look at my work, it doesn't have that angry energy or
No,
happy
بالعكس.
energy or anything. It's just timeless. It's kind of another dimension.
So Neda, let me put you on the spot. I can zoom out if you want to take some time and think about it.
I'm seeing some of the other photos up there with let me see. Oh, with the Azawi, with Samarji. I mean, so this is a time of hope and wanting to do things and change things, and so you can see that in his stance and the way he's standing.
This is him right here.
That's him, and that in front of him is the Azawi. Yeah,
صح, with the same mustache. Now, do you have a sense that sort of the manifesto of New Visions, the sort of the founders of that collective and the movement, did they feel like, خلاص, we failed, that project didn't work, the broader project that we were sort of rooting for didn't work, and we need to move on to other things? Like, if they were looking at this photo, this photo right here, do you think they would say, "Yee, how naive were we?"
I don't know if they think maybe to some extent they would feel now in retrospect, because remember, after they formed the group, there was in fact a regional pull, and the Arab Student Union was created, the Arab Biennale was created, so they felt a euphoria of success of sort of relations, and they all came out of good sort of relations with other Arab artists that remained with them throughout. And that actually was also accessible while they were in diaspora, because, the Arab artists did sort of integrate. For someone like Rafa, for example, in Amman through Darat al-Fanoon, he was also able to, connect with many artists, and even teaching in Bahrain. So, I'm sure in some part, I'm trying to think actually, like if I asked Rafa, do you think, I mean, in some part, they would think that eventually, yes, it failed. But I don't think the energy of that moment ever left them. I think it continued with them, and they refused to sort of give in, because their aesthetics changed and evolved as it should, but their connection with the region and their Arabism never actually abated. So,
yeah. I mean, the naivete of youth is powerful, and it's beautiful. It's like, it's so...
It's a euphoria, yeah.
It's euphoria, and it also allows you to remove restrictions that are imaginary sometimes.
It's like a wave sometimes.
It's like a wave sometimes. You're right. And so they felt that, and I have to say, to the last sort of breath, Rafa was always passionate and giving, and never ever for a minute you feel like he has give up or subdued. So that spirit stayed with him to the last minute. Allah yarhamu.
Do you think, and I'll put this question, I have two questions that I'll put to both of you, or three questions I'll put to both of you. If there is a city or a place that sort of regenerates you and recharges you and sort of gives you a sense of inspiration for your work continuously.
Everywhere is everywhere I go can charge me. I mean, sometimes when looking at art, but more, I think when I visited Al-Ula was breathtaking for me, because of I'm always drawn to what happens in the sky, especially, I think the most beautiful scenery is the layers of stars. Sometimes you feel like you can hold them because they feel so close to you. So I think that is breathtaking, and it gives me goosebumps even now when I talk about it. So I felt that's a place that has a lot of beauty in terms of thinking of what happened here like thousands of years ago. Where was this place? Was it under the water? And where are we now? So it makes you, question and forget yourself. You want to connect yourself to all these times, but definitely. I think everywhere I can get inspired, but Al Ula was when I went there, I was, where was I? Why didn't I come here before?
The stars are
Uh,
magical.
yes.
They're magical.
And the formation of the stones and everything.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah.
100%. Nada, I'm going to ask you the same question to answer on behalf of.
Yeah, and just to remind the viewers, this is not about me. This is about Rafa. So I am thinking that for Rafa, Baghdad will always continue to be his first sort of source of a place of energy and inspiration. I think his time in Beijing was also extremely inspiring for him, and I think he would agree with Lulwah that he will find a different energy everywhere he goes and is able to channel it. And he would have loved Al Ula. And if you see some of his work, as a matter of fact, evokes Al Ula at night unintentionally. But you can look at some of that work, and if you're in Al Ula, you can see that formation happening. So he would have, loved to visit Al Ula.
Amazing. Okay. Second to last question. I want to ask you, Lulwah, I'll start with you again. Do you have any book recommendations, since this is a podcast for a sort of an art library?
Book recommendation. So I am in my studio and I have all the books I love, and I recommend this book, Kandinsky, Concerning the Spiritual in Art. This is a very, very important book for artists to read, because I feel I got really inspired by it, and it does correspond to the Islamic art principles so much. So there is this book, and there is Point a Line to Plane as well by Kandinsky. And the reason why I love Kandinsky is that he's also a theorist. He's a philosopher. He's more than just someone who's experimenting with color. And also, like Rafa and the poetry, he was so connected to music. So
I love it.
I think that, coming from, Russia to Germany, and then moving to France getting exposed to different cultures actually enriches you a lot.
Absolutely.
So nice. Nada, what about you?
I want to actually recommend first, which is a book that I don't have around me now because I'm sort of packing, the book that May Muzaffar wrote about her life with Rafa, Water and Fire, that was translated to English by Al Mawrid, Arab Center for Research, so at NYU Abu Dhabi. So that definitely is an excellent book. A second one is also Rafa Nasiri book, 50 Years of Printmaking, which is also speaks of his amazing journey of how he arrived at printmaking and developed and innovated on printmaking. And I think the third one, just because they're sitting around me, and they happen to be another book by May Muzaffar, which is about فن الحديث في العراق التواصل والتمايز, which is a great sort of entry into development in Iraqi art and Rafa's place in Iraqi art.
Amazing. I love it. This is the benefit of interviewing people who are sitting in their studios and libraries. There's just books flying around.
Yes.
Okay, the last question is, if you have any recommendations for an artist for people to check out. Obviously, the list is very long, and obviously, you can't name everyone. So apologies on your behalf if you miss somebody. But is there an artist that you think if you enjoyed this conversation, this is a great person to check out. Lulwah, I'll start with you.
Oh, so many. I don't want to miss anyone. I mean,
Yeah,
definitely Samir Al-Sayegh, Rashid Qureshi. I mean, of course, we are talking about Rafa Nasiri, and really explore his ideas. And he's a very inspiring artist. Yeah, and
those are perfect. Excellent.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give you a break since you can't name everybody. Nada, what about you?
I mean, I agree with the artist that Lulwah listed, and I would say from his generation, Rafa's generation, should look at definitely Ismail Fattah and the Azawi's experiments with the letter. But I also want to recommend an artist, and I don't know to what extent, Lulwah, you know the work of Shakir Hassan al-Said.
Of course.
Because he looks
Yeah.
at the same resources you looked at, and he sort of created a different spirituality in art that is not very obvious. But he understood Masalan Ikhwan al-Safa and the whole idea of the one dimension in a very deep philosophical way that may not necessarily be expressed in the art, but in the sort of process of getting to that point.
Amazing. Okay, before we wrap up, are there any sort of next steps or things that you're working on now that people should look out for before the end of the year? Nada, I know that you're going to be at Al Mawrid. Maybe if you want to say something about that. And Lulwah, I don't know if you have anything coming up over the next 6 months that people should look out for.
I have, I'm curating a big sculpture exhibition, which
Amazing.
is, inshallah, I will be able to announce it soon.
Okay. That people can look online by the time this comes
Of course,
out, and
yeah.
inshallah this will be out.
Yeah.
Nada, do you want to say anything about Mawrid?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm excited to be working with Al Mawrid at NYU Abu Dhabi because, you know, this legacy of the artist and their work and their history is something that Al Mawrid specifically is looking into, archiving all of the resources and making them available for others to be to learn from them and to do research. And I also want to say that we just opened the All Manners of Experiment, Legacies of the Baghdad Modern Art Group at Bard College, an exhibition that will, inshallah, be going to NYU Abu Dhabi, a gallery, and to Mathaf Arab Museum of Modern Art later. So sort of a way of expanding, and Rafa's work is included as well.
I must say that I'm a big fan of Dr. Nada. I mean, the first time I saw one of her exhibitions in Doha, I think it was 2012. Was it 2012 when
Which
you did
one?
the contemporary art?
Forever Now, was it? Or
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
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 Well, I mean, I did a number of them, so I don't know which one you met. There's
I have the books.
Okay. So maybe Sajil, the 2010.
Sajil,
Yes.
Sajil, yeah. Sajil was a great exhibition. I really, really enjoyed that. And it was very inspiring for me as well.
Thank you.
Well, I should say it's an honor to have both of you on. I've told you each separately, but it really means a lot to me that you're on. I find you both to be mountains of knowledge, and for every ounce of knowledge, you're 2 ounces of generosity. So I really appreciate it.
We still have a lot to learn.
Yeah, we do. But thank you, Mikey. Thank you so much for hosting us here. Yes.
Thank you. We really enjoyed it. I mean, I personally really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much.